Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about the corruption system coming in patch 8.3. One important thing to note is that none of this stuff is quite final yet. It's being tested still in the PTR and everything like that. But we do, in general, pretty much know how this corruption system is going to work. So if you don't know anything about it, let's start from that point. So coming in 8.3, basically, we're getting rid of Titan Forging for a new corruption. You can call it corruption forging if you like. So now when you get a piece of gear, instead of having an RNG chance for it to Titan Forge, you have an RNG chance for it to corrupt. Each corruption's a negative thing, comes with a positive effect as well on the other end of it. However, if you get too much corruption, you basically can't play the game effectively, especially not raid in the game effectively. However, it is possible that you could perhaps do a lot of like world quests and stuff in the outside world with plenty of corruption on your gear. So let's go ahead and go over kind of what these negative effects are first. So the first thing, if you even have one corruption, so you just have one item with the least amount of corruption possible. I don't even know if one's possible, but the least amount of corruption possible. Taking damage has a chance to slow your movement speed. The magnitude of the slow increases with further corruption. So when you take damage, you lose movement speed. That's just from the lowest amount of corruption, Grasping Tendrils. At 20 corruption, you have Corrupted Zone. Your spells and abilities have a chance to create a Corruptor Zone at your location, dealing shadow damage to you every 2 seconds. The size and damage of the corrupted zone increase with higher corruption. So everything's going to increase with the more corruption you have. Then you have Grand Illusions at 40 corruption, and the previous ones do not go away just because you reach a new threshold here. Taking damage has a chance to summon a thing from beyond, and this thing chases you for 10 seconds, and the thing from beyond, gets faster as your corruption goes up. And the last possible thing, which is pretty much makes it not raidable, is Creeping Death at 60 corruption. All damage taken is magnified and all healing received is reduced, increasing with more and more corruption. That's why I said even with Creeping Death, you could possibly still do like world quests and stuff like that because you're not taking a lot of damage and you're probably not having healing yourself. However, maybe with World PvP, we'll see how PvP works with it, but that could be different. So let's go ahead and look at the positive effects on corruption now. So you can have there's tiers of the positive, and then each tier will give you different levels of corruption, and then there's a bunch of different things that it can put on your gear. So there's avoidance. Avoidance basically goes on a percent of your haste. There's 3 tiers of that: 3% of your haste, 6% of your haste, 10% of your haste. And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the tiers first before I break down all of these. So at tier 1, you get 5 to 10 corruption. So if you get the lowest tier of something, tier 2 you get 12 to 17 corruption, and tier 3 you get 20 to 25 corruption. So tier 3, if you get something tier 3, you're going to want it to be like your best possible affix to be added to your gear. So avoidance, that's going to probably mostly be for tanks in this case, if you're going to corrupt your gear for avoidance. You have haste, so increases the amount of haste you gain from all sources, and when I say these, they'll just be in rank of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So haste you gain by all sources by 2, 3, and 4%. Mastery, amount of mastery you gain from all sources from 2, 3, 4%. Increases the amount of critical strike you gain from all sources from 2, 3, and 4%. Versatility, the same. Health regen, 20% of total health regeneration now continues during combat. 20, 30, 40 is the tiers there. Healing received, increasing your healing received by 2, 4, and 6%. That's pretty good, especially for tanking. Anybody could use it though in a healing fight. Leech, increases your leech by 2, 4, and 6%. Oh goodness, demon hunters could possibly get even more leech. Crit damage, this is probably going to be anyone who uses crit at all's best thing. Increases damage you deal with crits by 2, 3, and 4%. At tier 3, you basically have the Nazjatar boots, although it doesn't have to be on your boots, of course. Reduces your damage taken, so periodic damage taken. Reduces your damage taken from periodic effects by 2, 4, and 6%. That's an interesting one. And then Flash of Clarity. Your spells and abilities have a chance to grant you a Flash of Clarity, reducing the cooldown of your next 3 spells by 2 seconds. So that's like kind of more of a cooldown type type affix there. So those are the current affixes. There's 3 tiers like I mentioned, and then I gave you the negative affix, and that's pretty much what we know. And this is probably going to be pretty close to what it goes live at. So now here at the end, I'll just give you my thoughts on this. I definitely think this is a great improvement on Titan Forging. Why is that? Because Titan Forging is all about eye level, and the best example I always give on this is people in my guild, for example, all have Titan Forged rings. I have crappy rings comparatively to them, and they all have Titan Forged rings with sockets, and they're just great. And Titan Forging at the end of the day is luck based, right? So how am I going to get this Titan Forging is basically what I'm thinking. Like, I need a Titan Forge ring. So even if I get a Titan Forge, what if it's already on something I already have? And there's basically no way for me to catch up, I guess is the way I'm getting at. But with this system, it's a little bit different because you are going to want to get your best in slot stuff. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to want to get that 4% extra damage from critical strikes as a Rep Paladin. That is going to be something that I most definitely want to get. It's going to make that piece of gear just irreplaceable, basically. So that is super important to get still, but at least you have something that you're going for. I also believe that this is going to happen a little bit more often than Titan Forging, as this becomes like a major point in the game. And if not, that's fine too, because then people are going to be annoyed if they don't have their best in slot, but at least gives you something to keep working for. We also see with the item, which I didn't even mention in this, there's an item, something Eye of Enzoth or something like that you can get a socket on a piece of gear. You twist the corruption. So I don't know if that removes the corruption or if it just turns the effect into a socket and it still has corruption on it. We don't know that for sure. Most people disagree with me. They think that it's just going to remove the corruption and give you a socket. I kind of think it's going to remove the effect, keep the corruption, and give you a socket. But so what we have there is basically there's other ways that you mold around it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And maybe it will feel bad when it goes live, but on its surface, it appears to be pretty good because no one's item level is going to be skyrocketing higher because of the Titan Forging. You're basically either going to have your best in slot effects or you're not, and you can't have all of them because you'll be too corrupted. So for me, I want to get. I'm almost guaranteeing without running any sims that I'm going to want to get the 4% critical strike damage to any piece of gear that it forges on, and that's just going to be my best piece of gear. And if I get another one on a higher item level, then that'll be my best piece of gear, and I'll use that instead. Some people have said that maybe they stack together as well. If so, that's really cool, and people will be doing that as well then. So basically, overall, I generally like this system. We'll see. I don't necessarily think it's needed in the game. I don't think Titan Forging is needed. I don't necessarily think this is needed. But this is a little bit better in the step of a right direction. If they give the players a little bit of choice to it, perhaps in this expansion, since we have scrapping, perhaps scrapping a corrupted piece would give you corrupted essence, and the corrupted essence could go towards purchasing something for your gear. Something like that could be nice, and maybe I should suggest that myself as well. But yeah, overall it's good. Hopefully they give the players a little bit more choice to it though, because I can see some people getting pretty angry if they just are getting the crappy avoidance thing. If you're a DPS and you just keep getting the avoidance thing over and over again, that could be pretty annoying. So give the players a little bit more initiative, a little bit more choice, and I think they might be onto something. Please subscribe to my channel because that helps me out a lot. And other than that, everybody have a good one.